story, Jammu and Kashmir erupts in anger. But for some, their rights are not worth fighting for. Terrorized into silence. The big story on Headlines Today.
Hello and welcome once again to Policy Bazaar. I'm Arjun Bhagat. Now, the last time I entered a pizzeria, I remember ordering a thin crust barbecue pizza along with extra salami, mushrooms and onions as toppings. Now, the cost of the pizza was a tad higher, but I didn't care as it tasted differently and melted away in my mouth like an ice cube on a hot stove. Same is the case of additional rider benefits, which let you customize your life and general insurance policies to better suit your needs and give you advanced protection. In simple terms, a rider is an add-on which can provide you with additional benefits. The cost of purchasing a rider is minimalistic as compared to the insurance policy on which the rider is purchased. But one cannot buy a rider without purchasing the insurance policy. Now, to know more about such riders in your life insurance policy, we once again have Yashish Dhaya with us, co-founder and CEO of Policy Bazaar. Now, who will help us understand how such riders work and how should one intelligently go about buying them? Welcome to the show, Yashish. Thanks. My analogy about the pizza and the toppings, does that make sense as far as additional riders go for a life insurance policy?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. I think it's the simplest way of explaining it. See, when you think about a rider, a base policy is meant for a few eventualities. Those eventualities are usually some time periods when you get some monies, or death, or the completion of the policy term. However, there are more eventualities than that. One can have a critical illness, one can have a terminal illness, one can have a disability. If a disability happens, you may not be in a position to pay your premiums. So there are lots of eventualities which are not thought of in the black and white world of a single insurance policy with no riders. That's precisely where riders come in. Riders come in to fill in those gaps which you may believe are applicable to you or may believe are not applicable to you. I think that's the most important piece about the rider. Now, a base policy has to be there. See, the rule is that a life insurance company cannot sell a rider without the base policy. And that, in a way, has kept these riders to become slightly less popular or less known. Because the first thing you buy is the base policy. You cannot buy the rider without it. So you cannot go and buy just a terminal illness benefit or just a disability cover. You have to buy it along with a life insurance policy, either a ULIP or a traditional plan. So the analogy is absolutely right. So you have to have the pizza to have the topping. You can't have just the topping.
So in terms of additional benefits of riders, what are some of those benefits and what about the costing of that? I mean, how does that work? Is it high, is it less, or is it, just a lot of people say, oh, it's there because they want to sell us more insurance products?
Yeah, see, a rider, by law, IRDA stipulates that a riders cannot cost you more than 30% of the base policy. A rider is something one should think about because it's very important to be aware about what you are buying. Now, so basic enough to answer the first question, a rider cannot cost you more than 30%. But yes, there may be an attempt by somebody to push a rider to you just to enhance the premium a bit and hence get a higher commission or to just sell you a larger ticket policy. You should not buy a rider that's not applicable to you, and you should understand those in some detail in terms of what are the riders, who do they apply
because
to.
There are benefits.
There are serious benefits out of them. There are serious benefits out of them, as we'll kind of see as we go along this show. There are serious benefits in that.
So Yashish, what do you term as good riders, and how does one go about assessing that this is my need, these are the riders that I need? And what would you recommend are some of those good riders?
Sure. So let me actually try to structure the riders in some form. So let's say the eventualities. One eventuality is death, right? And in that death, you basically have a term cover. You can enhance this term cover at any stage in your policy, and there are certain time frames. So that's called essentially increasing your cover or increasing term cover rider or a term cover rider, right? You could have, the death could happen for owing to an accident. In that situation, you could have a personal accident rider, which basically implies that you get a lot more than than what you would have got under the pure term cover. The reason for this, one would ask, hey, why is an accident any different from a normal death? In an accident, you don't get time to plan. See, in a gradual demise of an individual, the family gets some time to plan. They get maybe 1 year, 6 months in any kind of disease. But in an accident, you don't get time to plan. Now, these are the riders that come in terms of death. There can be certain additional benefits that can come in. There can be a waiver of premium. Now, I'll explain this. Suppose you have a policy which is supposed to last 20 years. And the primary holder's death happens in the 3rd year. The family may not be in a position to pay the premiums for the next 17 years. But they might still want to have the benefit of that policy. So a waiver of premium rider essentially allows that no more premiums will have to be paid upon either death or critical illness or any such event, whatever the rider may be for. So you can take it for various eventualities. There may be a family income benefit rider. Now, the family income benefit rider says that you will, of course, get the waiver of premium, but in addition to that, you will get a certain sum for the family every year for the next 17 years, which was what we spoke about. Then, death not being the only eventuality, there could be a critical illness or there could be a terminal illness. In both these situations, a critical illness implying it's a serious illness, heart disease, neurological disorder. However, there's a likelihood you're going to come out of it. And what that means is you need money to carry out the cure. And so you get some money to carry out the cure. But the base policy continues just as it was. Right? That's a critical illness cover. A terminal illness cover is the doctor has said, or the doctors have said, there is no scope for survival. In that case, you are going to get the term cover, but you could get some of that money up front because in those tough days, some costs that are coming onto the family, which is making it difficult for the family. Because even when a doctor has said the individual is going to expire, the family may still continue the treatment.
What about disability? Now,
so disability would be the third form of rider. So critical illness, terminal illness, and disability. So now there are various forms of disability. There can be a partial disability. There is a permanent. There is a complete disability, or what you would call. So it's a total disability. So partial disability, total disability, permanent disability, temporary disability. All of these are eventualities that you have riders for. Just to explain, a partial disability could be something like I lost one hand. That's a partial disability. If I lose both hands, it's a total disability. And that's how it's defined. And you get certain benefits under those conditions. So you should look at these riders very seriously. I really believe that, maybe we should start thinking of, as an industry, taking these riders far more seriously and sometimes making them almost as important as a base plan. I've often said that a disability is actually more debilitating for the family than, economically at least, than even the death of an individual. Because if the individual dies, from an economic perspective, you lost the income. But if the person has a permanent disability, you've obviously lost the income, plus you've got the person alive who has to be taken care of. So the cover you may require in a disability situation may be even higher. But so far these covers have been very small. So typically you would see these covers are almost token amounts. So you would have a 1 lakh, 2 lakh disability cover.
That doesn't really cover anything.
That doesn't, seriously, in today's time, it doesn't cover anything. I think 20 years ago it may have covered some serious amounts. Because of inflation, it doesn't cover much today.
Right. Now, there are so many things that can happen in the future. There can be an accident, there can be a disability, as you explained very comprehensively. How does an individual decide that, these are the 3 or 4 things, or 1 thing or 2 things, depending on, how much they want to spend? How do they actually decide? Because one doesn't know. Yeah, so I think one has to think about themselves. So let me take a few examples. Suppose you're a person who travels a lot, right? Now, accidents happen in travel. They do happen, right? Road accidents happen. We hear about them every day. So accidents do happen in travel. And hence, taking a personal accident cover would be a good idea. Suppose you are somebody who is working in a factory. We've all heard, or in some kind of agricultural activity, we've all heard disabilities happen. I've seen so many people, my fingers got cut, they came into a factory. Now, all of those are disabilities. In those eventualities, you're left to fend for yourself or somehow rely on the social
good around us to kind of take care of you.
So what you're saying is that a person really needs to sit down and do some sort of a personal risk analysis.
Absolutely. You have to see critical illnesses.
Based on priorities.
Based on priorities. I'll give you a very simple example. For example, my father, right? He's otherwise very fit, but he's got a hearing problem and he likes to walk on the road, especially at night. Now, obviously, in that situation, there's a chance he can have an accident. Very high chance. I give it a very high probability. And, so you would have, a person can look at their own circumstance and see what is likely to happen. With age, critical illness chances increase. So with a lot of movement, driving chances, accident chances increase. With working in physical environments can cause disabilities. Disabilities unlikely to happen if you're sitting, or less likely to happen in a white-collar job.
So, Yashish, basically what you're saying is that, take the core insurance policy that you have to, but also look at the options that the company is giving you.
Absolutely.
And decide on one or two of those which are critical.
I would even go to the extent of saying that don't just decide on a policy for the base policy alone. Look at the riders it offers and only then decide the policy. Because sometimes riders can be as important as the primary policy, and because a particular policy doesn't offer you a particular rider may imply that's not the right policy for you, even though at the base of it that policy might give you a 0.5 or a 0.2% higher return. Remember, insurance is not about returns only. It is about tax saving and returns, and it does do quite well there, but it is about these factors which so far I think the population at large has missed out.
Thanks, Yashish. Now it's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll take your questions. And, of course, Yashish Dhaya will answer them. Stay with us. And you can also write to us on ask.policybazaar.com. On Facebook, you can write to us on Facebook/PolicyBazaar India. Or you can tweet us on at @PolicyBazaar_in. We'll see you shortly after the break. Keep watching.
मम्मा, मैं सिर्फ कार इंश्योरेंस रिन्यू कर रहा था।
बिना कंपेयर किए? Do you all buy insurance without comparing? PolicyBazaar.com पे जाओ, पॉलिसी साइड बाय साइड कंपेयर करो और पैसे बचाओ। PolicyBazaar.com।
यही है वो
प्रपोजल मेरे लिए ओके है, पर पापा
यही है वो
मेरे लिए ओके है, पर पापा
यही है वो
मेरे लिए ओके है, पर पापा
यही है वो
मेरे लिए ओके है, पर बस हमारी पॉलिसी में सब कवर हो जाएंगे।
फैमिली चाहे छोटी हो या बड़ी, एक पॉलिसी करती है 5 जनरेशन तक का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस। मैक्स बूपा हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस। कॉल 1-800-3010-3333।
सर जी, वो एक मेमोरी बढ़ाने के लिए वो एक दवाई होती है ना,
कुछ नाम है दवाई का?
वो भूल गया।
इस बार ये लो, श्री श्री आयुर्वेदा का मेध्य रसायन आयुर्वेदिक मेमोरी बूस्टर। एक बार लोगे कभी नहीं भूलोगे।
तुम्हारी माँ के अलावा और कुछ दिखता है तुम्हें? उस दिन का इंतजार कर रहा हूँ मैं कि कब मुझे छुटकारा मिलेगा।
तुम और सीमा इस बार बेटी पैदा करना, बुढ़ापे में काम आएगी।
बचपन में पाया था, आज भी ऐसा। कॉन्टिनेंटल 2-wheeler टायर्स मेड बाय मेट्रो।
A lifestyle store with everything for the woman you are. Maya Lifestyle by Gitanjali.
ओ काला डोरिया कुंडी नल हड़ता है, मुंडा को ही लो, मुंडा कोई ना मेरी नजर में चढ़ता है।
Go.
We'll find our we'll find our time. It's more than yours, it's more than mine. We'll find our time. It's more than yours, it's more than mine. We'll find our time.
Find your we time. TVS Vigo with Body Balance.
संगनी डायमंड ज्वेलरी, क्योंकि स्पेशल है वो.
He's back. Business Insider, Economy Gazer, Boardroom Watcher, and now Interrogator. Govind Raj Ethiraj.
Would there be areas that were excessively government controlled?
There were resources which were controlled by government. Not enough clarity in the rules on how they're being allocated. That's where we stayed away.
Bottom line, only on Headlines Today.
97% of the policies issued within 3 days. So would you choose Apollo Munich?
Welcome back to Policy Bazaar. I'm Arjun Bhagat, and with me is Yashish Dhaya, who'll answer your questions. We've got Vidya from Pune, and she wants to know about cashless hospitalization for her family. Now, she says, my family includes myself, husband, and in-laws. My father-in-law is 56 and has undergone a bypass surgery. And she wants to know about, the cashless claims that she can benefit out of by taking a Mediclaim policy. Yashish, how should she go about that?
So see, almost every insurance company in the market, pretty much everybody, has got a cashless product, and hence she can avail of that cashless benefit. As far as pre-existing diseases are concerned, the quickest she could get them covered is about 2 years. There are plans by L&T Insurance as well as Max Bupa, where you can start to get a cover in about 2 years for your pre-existing disease.
That means a number of tests will happen and
no, for a pre-existing disease, it basically means you have the disease, but you cannot take a claim on it for the first 2 years. After that, you can get a claim. Most policies, this is up to 4 years, but a few policies have it, as I mentioned, the L&T policy as well as the
So all the other benefits will be given, but that particular ailment will not be given.
Will not be covered. So it's a known pre-existing disease which is not covered for the first couple of years. After that, that gets covered.
We've got Kaushal from Bangalore who says that what do I get if I get a term insurance of 20 lakhs at the age of 46 and for a term of 20 years? And if I'm still there at the end of 20 years, do I get that 20 lakhs back? There seems to be some confusion about what term insurance really means as far as Kaushal is concerned.
Yeah, so term insurance is essentially you don't get your money back on survival. So if you take a policy, in this particular policy, suppose the individual is approximately 50 years, taking it for about 20 years, they would get this policy for about 9,000 rupees, a 20 lakh rupee cover, 9,000 rupees a year. If they survived at the end of the 20 years, they would get nothing. However, if they expired any time during this period, their nominee would get the 20 lakhs. That is a term policy. There is another kind of policy called a TROP, Term Return of Premium. In that case, if the individual was paying a certain amount of money, that money plus a small return you would get back at the end of the term. And the term cover comes essentially without the cost. Now let me explain in a thumb rule manner how TROP works. So TROP essentially means they provide you the term cover with the interest cost, or with the differential in the interest they can earn basis the money that you have with them. So if you typically, a TROP will cost you about 3 times a term policy. So if you can get a term policy for 50 lakh rupees, for let's say 10,000 rupees, for the same term, it should ideally cost you about 30,000 rupees to get a TROP.
So that's 3 times the cost.
That's 3 times. However, that's not so bad. People may say it's very expensive, but it's not so bad. Because think about one thing. If you had 3 times the money and you put it in a bank, you'd only get interest which would be, suppose you had 30,000 rupees and you put it in a bank, you'd get 3,000 rupees as interest. So in the first year, you've lost only 3,000 bucks, whereas you would have lost 10,000 rupees in getting a term plan. Your money you will get back, probably with some return. Some companies even give you 10% more. As the length of a TROP increases, its price comes down. As the length of a term plan increases, its price goes up. You have to remember this. So for very, very short terms, a term plan is cheaper. For a very long term, a TROP starts to become cheaper, or starts to become lower cost. Relatively, it will never become cheaper than a term plan, but that's the broad thinking.
Right, thanks. We've got Samarth Raj from Delhi, and he says, in case of pure term insurance plans, is it beneficial for an individual to have multiple term policies? And in case of his unfortunate death, will the same nominee get multiple policies? And what is the IRDA and or government regulations in this regard?
Whether you have one policy or multiple policies, it makes no difference, as long as you have declared them. These are cumulative policies, so unlike health insurance where you get a proportion, suppose in a health insurance plan, suppose you've taken two plans of 5 lakhs each and your cost is 1 lakh rupees and both plans will pay 50,000 rupees each. However, this is limited up to the sum assured and it does not, you don't get a lower amount. So you'll get your full amount from both the plans. Only condition is when you bought the plans in a life insurance plan, please declare that you have the other one. If you don't declare it, then the person can question that you had a moral hazard. So you basically bought this plan to get a higher amount of money, which you were otherwise not allowed because your income wasn't enough to get it.
Right. We've got Anant Sai Ram, who says, who's from Cuttack, and he says, I'm 48 years old, and during my earlier days of employment, I had taken several types of policies from LIC. All those policies have now matured, and I've used the money to clear off my housing loan. I have no liabilities as of now, but I'm worried that I have no life coverage or any pension. I have a health insurance plan, a family floater for 3 lakhs, which covers the wife and the daughter. What is the best insurance plan that I can take? My annual income is around 8 lakhs per annum.
So if your annual income is about 8 lakhs per annum, your family is dependent on that income. You have a small health cover. I think you should enhance your health cover to about 5 lakh rupees for the entire family. That should cost you roughly about 20,000-25,000 rupees, depending on which plan you take. You should take a term cover. You should take a serious enough term cover, spending about 20,000 rupees a year. You'll probably get a 50 lakh kind of term cover for that. Maybe even no, you'll get a bigger term cover for that. So you might even get a 1 crore term cover for that. So take a big term cover and put the rest of the money. So you've got about 50-60,000 rupees left from your tax amount that you usually have to invest for taxes. Put that in a ULIP, a long-term ULIP, which would continue for a long stage, and you will get the money when you retire. I think that's the way you plan about it.
Right. We've got Praveen Sinha from Delhi. He says, I'm 32 years old. I want to buy a medical insurance policy for my parents with a coverage of around 2 lakhs. How much premium will I have to pay for that for my spouse as well as children to come under the policy? Of course, he says that policy has been provided for him by his company. So basically, he's asking about his parents'
cover.
Yeah. And
so see, for the parents cover, there are certain good plans. There is a plan by Star Health. There is a plan by Bajaj Allianz. Even Apollo Max, you can enter these plans for any age. HDFC has a plan, Tata AIG has a plan. So lots of plans exist for older people. And specifically, it depends now if they are fit or not fit. If they are not fit, they may go for a senior citizen plan. But if they're quite fit, they can take a normal plan. It shouldn't be a problem.
Right, Yashish, now, I've got a question for you. We've still got a couple of minutes for this show. When you actually go in for term insurance plans and you go online and you buy them, you're told that, you're going to have those 3 sets of tests done.
Yeah.
And you're given a certain premium that you have to buy immediately, you have to pay up immediately. What is the policy in regard to the company asking for more tests? I mean, can they increase the amount of insurance, say, in a term plan?
Yeah, so see, there are certain assumptions made and there's certain convenience provided. So about 70% of the people, 80% of the people, the premium that's been provided becomes the final premium. However, for some people, there may be further testing done. And in case some problems are found in those tests, they can be a top-up amount. My understanding is about 20% of the people, 20 to 30% of the people do have to face that. And I think that information should be provided upfront rather than, kept for later, because that would help that 20-30% of the people. So it's a toss-up between how many people exist in that area who will need this special check and the convenience that the others can face, because then they're not asked that question. So it's a toss-up between those two, and currently the convenience is winning the battle. But I think as the industry matures, this part of where the top-ups happen because of further checks should also be considered and informed upfront.
Thanks, Yashish. That's all the time that we have on this show. On our next show, we'll be talking about additional rider benefits in your general insurance policy. So you can write to us with your questions on ask.policybazaar.com or on Facebook/PolicyBazaar India, or you can tweet us at @PolicyBazaar_in, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
मिनिस्टर साहब, मैंने आपको वोट दिया था। आपने कहा था सुनवाई होगी, तब से मैं इंतजार कर रही हूँ। महंगाई आई, पर आप नहीं आए। हम तो इंतजार करते रहे, पर अब और नहीं। मिनिस्टर साहब, अब मुझे हक है अपनी बात बोलने का। मुझे हक है सुने जाने का। I have the right to be heard.
In an ever-changing world, India's #1 news weekly brings you rare insights of the week's top stories. Inside the secret world of 2611, mastermind David Headley. How to control rivals and influence fence-sitters. BJP leaders reshuffle loyalties. Don't mess with warrior women. India Today, making sense of India. Digital magazine on iPad with exclusive videos. Subscribe at indiatoday.in/digital magazine.
मम्मा, मैं सिर्फ कार इंश्योरेंस रिन्यू कर रहा था।
बिना कंपेयर किए? Do you all buy insurance without comparing? PolicyBazaar.com पे जाओ, पॉलिसी साइड बाय साइड कंपेयर करो और पैसे बचाओ। PolicyBazaar.com